Well, welcome to Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today we're going to be doing a little field trip here in Hudson, New Hampshire, and we're going to be exploring this whole thing of ham radios. And I'm here with John Halbert of old WSMN, and you've been a legend around here in Nashville for a while, and you're one of the ham operators?
Yes, I am. I belong to this club. This is my 41st year doing Field Day. And Field Day is the largest amateur radio event held in the United States and Canada every year, and it's always held on the fourth weekend in June. And the purpose of Field Day is to allow amateur radio operators to sharpen their skills in preparing for natural disasters when they happen, wherever they happen, and provide emergency communications for as long as it's needed. Like in the past, we've had the tornadoes in the Midwest. Amateur radio has been there providing all the emergency communications because you have no electricity and you can't use your cell phone because your cell phone has to go to a cell phone tower, which is run by electricity. If you don't have electricity, you can't do that.
Now, we recently had a natural disaster. It was that October surprise when all the electricity went down in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was ham radio part of the help back then?
Yes, it was. We set up stations at all important places such as hospitals, fire stations, City Hall, the Red Cross Center, fire dispatch, police station, and we have a center command post, and everybody goes to where they're supposed to go and wait for further instructions, and everything goes to the center command post.
What does ham stand for anyway?
It's just another word for amateur radio. Amateur radio is the proper title, but they shorten it and call it ham radio.
And communities should promote this because, again, if electricity goes down, it's a wonderful way of communicating.
It's a much needed way of communications, and it provides a lot of assistance where a lot of people don't know. Amateur radio, you have CB, but CB has limited power requirements. Number two, they're limited to one frequency. Okay, you have 40 channels, but that's not frequency. You're on the 27 megahertz band, where amateur radio has multiple frequencies, plus the power is greater. An amateur radio operator can use up to 1,500 watts PEP of power, but most amateur operators only use 100 to 200 watts of power.
So right now, as we're talking, I can hear in the background some radio, but I can also hear a generator. So when the power goes out, if you have a generator and a ham radio, you're able to communicate, whereas with the cell phone, you can't.
You can actually go ham radio to ham radio on a frequency that's a simplex frequency that does not need to go through a repeater. So you can still provide emergency communications, whereas Citizens Band Radio does not go through a repeater.
Do you have to have a special type of training to become a ham operator?
You have to have a license. Now, there are 3 license classes to get. The technician is the first one you get. Then there's the general, and then there's the extra. And the nice thing about amateur radio now is you do not need to know Morse code to get your license as you did before. Now, getting back to license classes, Citizens Band Radio, you have to have a license and you have to be 18 to get a license on CB. Amateur radio has no age limit, and you don't need, as far as the license classes go, they've shortened it. There used to be 5 class of licenses: novice, which used only Morse code, then tech, then general, then advanced, and extra. Now there's only 3. And they've made it a lot easier to get a ham license now. So you don't really have to, you study the materials and you take the test, and we have a very good success rate in our club. Our club was just voted the #1 amateur radio club of the year for 2019, which is very rare.
Yeah, you just showed me that.
That picture right there, that's the picture of the award that the club received. And we just received another award for our mentoring of young kids and students. And it's a nice award to get because our club is very, very into the youth and the schools.
So if somebody wants to know about this club, is there an email or a site?
You can go to our website. It's N1FD, November 1, Foxtrot Delta.org. And you can find all the information there about our club activities, what we have going on. And it's a great hobby to be in. We have licensed over 225 kids through the school program, through the STEM program. We've launched 4 helium air balloon projects through the STEM program. And we just did one a couple of weeks ago. We went about 116,000 feet, which is quite something. You can watch that on the video on the website. We have that. But we're very much into mentoring, and our license success rate with our kids in all of our license classes, we have a 93% rate, which is very, very, very good.
Is it expensive to get started? I mean, to take the courses or to even buy a ham radio?
No, our courses start around $40, $45, and it includes the materials. And we hold the classes 6 times a year. We hold the technician class, the general class, and the extra class twice a year at the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. If you're taking the technician exam or the general exam, it's a 2-day event. You go all day Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sunday, and we give you the test on Sunday, and there's a pretty 99.9% chance you will pass the test. And you'll get your license in less than about 7 to 10 days.
Excellent.
And it's a great hobby to be in, so I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about being here. The weather is cooperating, and it's just a great time. People should really come out and see how much fun amateur radio is and how much enjoyment you'll get when an emergency arises. You really get to put your skills to the test.
So are you saying this is better than Facebook?
Yes. I have a computer and I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it.
But you can really actually communicate with people from around the globe, from what I understand.
You can, and we have a net that meets on Sunday night at 7:30 on the frequency of 146.73. And we have another net that meets at 8:30 at 28.480 on 10 meters. And anybody can check in from around the world. We have people check in from the Azores and everything. It's quite a nice little hobby to be in. We mentor people. We teach kids how to solder. We build kits for kids. We have a tech night on the second Tuesday of every month. And it's just fantastic.
Well, thank you very much, John. I appreciate you coming on the show. And
coming out and being with us here at Field Day 2019. It's a great time to have you here. We appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, well, we're going to look at some of the owners of these towers, and I guess there's one that's...
I can get Fred over here for you.
Yeah, there's somebody... I noticed the satellite thing is moved.
Yes, that's positioning itself. You can go watch that too.
All right, so we'll be right back. And we're here with David Merchant. He's one of the gentlemen here that is at this event here. And I'm looking at all these towers. And David, you're from?
I'm from Windham, New Hampshire.
Windham. And how long have you been engaged with ham radios?
About 15 years now.
15 years. Is this your son over here?
No, it's not my son.
Okay.
But kids are certainly welcome.
Great.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the event and how you got involved.
Yeah, so this is an annual event that's been going on for many, many decades in the amateur radio community. It's all about a couple different things. Emergency preparedness, making sure that people can establish stations in the event of an emergency very quickly. But more importantly, it's a learning event for local people to better understand amateur radio and how you would go about building a station. So we really encourage a lot of new folks to come out here and participate, not only operate, but also help us to set up, tear down, and there's just a tremendous amount to be learned.
So when you say building a station, so that in the event of an emergency, how to be mobile and get something up and running so that you can communicate?
That's right. So this station here, we actually have 4 towers. We can basically communicate anywhere in the world from this facility here. Mm-hmm. And we were able to put this entire site together in 24 hours. So we're completely off the grid. We're making our own power. We have our own communications towers, and then we can establish communication anywhere in the event of an emergency.
So the first line of prepping then, right? Being a prepper?
First line of prepping. Sure, I'm not a prepper, but...
No. I noticed there's also a satellite tower. Is that what that
is? Yeah, that's a satellite tower. So there are, many people don't realize this, but a fair number of amateur radio satellites out there in space, many of which are these new CubeSats. They're very small. They're only about 8 inches square. And they move around the Earth, and you can communicate with them through a setup such as this and get a fair amount of distance out of it.
No kidding, really? So and anybody can log into that or tap into that to communicate?
Yeah, if you're a amateur radio operator, you're able to operate on the frequencies that those satellites are on, and you can do so with a very simple handheld setup. The one we have here today is fully automated. And what that means is we actually use a computer to track where the satellites are in the sky, and the antenna automatically points itself at the satellite and follows it as it comes across the horizon. So this is a very advanced setup.
So now when you're communicating to people, say there's not an emergency and you just want to just get out there, instead of being on Facebook or Twitter or something to that effect, you go onto your ham radio. What's your average conversation like?
Well, so there's different types of communication on amateur radio. There's a lot of contesting, in which case you're trying to make as many contacts as you can in a given period of time, and those we call them exchanges. Those are very short. Typically it's your call sign and the signal strength of your signal, and then you move on to the next guy. But a lot of people like to what we call rag chew, and rag chewing is having a conversation with someone. I akin that to basically picking up your phone, dialing a random phone number, and getting someone somewhere in the world that actually wants to talk to you when they answer the phone.
Kind of like a truck driver, breaker 19, breaker 19.
Well, a little bit like that, yeah. But I mean, there's a lot more structure to amateur radio, and people that hear these conversations, that's one of the things that really strikes them. Is it's not like CB radio in that it's, hey, breaker, good buddy. You know, it's you have to have.
We got a convoy.
Yeah, we got a convoy here.
Yeah.
No, but it's a very structured set of communications that we make. We use our call signs so you know who it is that you're communicating with. You can look up that call sign. You have the person's name and address.
Now the call sign, I'm looking at your hat. It says K1DLM. Is that your call sign?
That's my call sign, exactly.
And expert amps. What is that?
Oh, that's a piece of equipment that I bought. The people gave me a free hat, so.
There's a nice little promo for them, no? Good for you.
Exactly, expert amps.
So when somebody knows nothing about this, what's the first thing that you want to advise them about?
Well, I would say get active in a local club. We're very fortunate being here in Nashua. This club, the Nashua Area Radio Society, won Amateur Radio Club of the Year internationally just last month out at the Dayton Hamvention, and that's a very prestigious award. You would be hard-pressed to find another club as active as this one anywhere in the United States. So we've got almost 250 members at this point, and we have a wide variety of activities. So for someone who wants to get engaged, talk to your local ham club. I think you'll find them welcoming, and they'll help you to get licensed and teach you what you need to know.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and I hope this is a great turnout today. Got a great day for it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for coming out.
Yes, sir. And I'm in the tent here with one of the presidents, I believe the president, Fred Cameron.
Yep, Fred Cameron.
Fred Cameron, and one of the things that's fascinating about this tent with this ham radio event that we're here is we have a satellite tracker, and it's kind of unique. I didn't know that you could track satellites with a ham radio.
Yep, that's absolutely right. The station behind you here is our satellite station. It's all computer controlled. There are about 15 satellites in space that work on the amateur radio frequencies. They're all low Earth orbit satellites, which means they're not very high above the ground. And because of that, they don't stay stationary like, say, a TV satellite would. They come up and go across the sky and set, so we have to track them in order to talk through them.
Now, is there an advantage to having that versus just a regular tower?
Well, if you had just a plain old tower that you couldn't point the antennas upward, you'd be able to hear the satellite when it came up over the horizon and right when it was about to set over the horizon. But for the bulk of the satellite pass where it was overhead, you probably wouldn't hear anything. The satellite towers here not only point in the direction of the satellite, but they also point in elevation. And so, for example, the satellite goes right overhead, the antennas will end up pointing straight up.
Okay, like they are right now.
Probably, yeah.
So, quick question then: if we're using these ham radios in an emergency situation, just a few minutes ago, we actually, with the blue sky, we heard thunder.
Right.
Shut it down.
Wow. I have never seen that.
But you see, with the quick storm that comes through, we have to shut down because people can get killed.
Because these are lightning rods. Thunder.
Right, we shut some stuff down, right.
You have to shut things down. So during the storm, you don't want to be using your ham radio, I assume.
Well, there's always a risk of lightning striking one of our antennas. Now, in an actual emergency, we make a judgment call. For antennas that are close to the ground, like these satellite antennas, we might let them run and still continue to use those. We also have an emergency go kit over here in our public information tent that has a small antenna that's very low. That would probably still be safe to use. But these higher towers here that we use to talk worldwide and across the United States, they're 40 feet. If there's a lightning hit in the area, it's probably better not to have those hooked up to the radios. Plus, we're not in an actual emergency situation, so we don't want to risk our equipment or do anything that's unsafe.
So it's come to my understanding you actually made that tower yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Amateur radio is a very hands-on kind of hobby, and most people that get into it at some point in time build their own equipment.
How long did it take you to do this?
Well, this particular tower here, we actually built 2 of them. The school that we're at here, Hudson Memorial School, approached us about 2 years ago to help them make a contact with an astronaut on the space station.
Wow.
And so we worked with the school for about a year, built this tower and the station here. This was one of our stations that the kids used to talk to the astronaut. And we built a second one as a backup, set it all up actually on the same field here at the school. And the kids spent about 15 minutes talking to Serena Non-Chandler when she was on the space station late in December, and did a Q&A with her.
So in the process, were the kids actually learning how to do this from the school?
Yep, we actually have been working with the school on a number of projects. There's a teacher here, Dan Pooler, who is also a member of our club and an amateur radio operator. And he gave us a good bit of and several other teachers, their classroom time to teach the kids about atmospheric science, amateur radio, and high-altitude balloons. And we actually helped them 2 weekends ago launch a balloon carrying amateur radio all the way up to about 115,000 feet. And they tracked it using amateur radio and looked at where it went. And the coolest thing about it, it had 2 cameras on, and we actually have a video of the balloon bursting at 21 miles. You can see the whole circular Earth and the blackest space and the whole deal.
So these kids are learning, but it's fun.
Yeah. Well, you got to make it fun. Young people, won't spend time on, because they have so many choices.
Right.
They won't spend much time on anything unless you make it fun. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff. We put hidden radio transmitters out here, and the kids hunt them down. We actually teach a radio license class. We're going to do it again in early August. That'll help probably 15 to 20 kids here get their amateur radio licenses. And our club, the National Radio Society, is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we've raised about $8,000. We're going to put a first-class radio station in the school here for the kids.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Are there sponsors that sponsor this at all?
A lot of it's just the generosity of our members. Some of the people in the industry have also given us equipment for free or at a discount to help with the project. So we're actually going to put a satellite ground station just like this one in here, as well as some simpler shortwave antennas that the kids will be able to use to talk all over the world. And it'll be a great opportunity for them to learn about technology, I think.
Are any of the other middle schools or the high schools in the region doing this as well?
We have engagements with a bunch of schools. We've been at Bishop Girton High School here in Nashville. They also helped launch the balloon. World Academy, which is an elementary and middle school over in Nashua, and a Merrimack High School. To get to the stage that we're getting with Hudson, it's very important to have teachers actively licensed and involved, because if you put up like a radio facility in a school, we can't be here during the time the school's in session for the kids to use it. So you got to really have a member of the faculty that will kind of sponsor it and run the thing. And that's about as good as it gets when you have relations. We'll probably get to that point with some of the other schools. We have some of the teachers licensed there, but they're not all that active yet.
Well, yeah, you have a lot of competitions that are going on with the robotics, and you would think that this would be another way to teach, communication skills and emergency.
Well, it actually teaches that stuff, but it does more. Robotics is great because you learn a lot about relevant automation technologies and stuff. And amateur radio, you learn a lot about wireless communications, which increasingly is the only communications we use anymore, right? All the wired stuff's going away. But you also learn geography, because you learn stuff all over the world. You learn about culture. You're going to talk to people in Europe and Latin America and Asia. In some ways, I think amateur radio is a broader experience than a lot of the stuff that's more popular.
It would be nice to see it across the state then, wouldn't it?
It sure would be. And, we've got a lot of support for the work we're doing. We've only been doing this kind of work for about 3 years, so we're still pretty early at it. We've actually only been a nonprofit for a little over a year. It's been a good year. We've raised, before we raised a little bit of money before we're a nonprofit, but all in, I think we've raised a little over $10,000 already.
Oh, excellent. Wow.
That helps a lot. It lets us do these kinds of projects for the kids, and it doesn't cost the school any money, and everybody benefits.
And I keep bringing up Facebook, but this is a lot more fun than Facebook, huh?
You know, we're on Facebook. As a matter of fact, one of our guys is walking around with a phone. He was broadcasting live on Facebook.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we do a lot of live streaming type stuff. That's very popular with the kids.
I just saw somebody poke a camera in here, so I wonder if that's who that was.
It could very well be. Very well be.
Fred, thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate the opportunity. I hope you guys have a good chance to have some fun here at Field Day.
And we're here with McGill and Martha. Got it?
Yep.
And newlyweds.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You didn't happen to meet at a ham radio.
No. No, I'm hoping that Martha picks up on it. Martha used to have a CB radio in the car.
That's true.
Years ago.
We were talking about CBs earlier. You know, Bricker 19, Bricker 19.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah, years ago.
It was fun, right?
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
Were you a truck driver?
No. I just it was good actually for traffic reports. Before now, I mean now we have the GPS, but back then you could hear from the truckers, like they would tell you where
What's your 20? What,
speed traps. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Smokey up the
Yeah,
road.
Smokey. Yep.
I watched Smokey and the Bandit, so I know these terms.
I saw
so
that too.
I'm an expert. So anyway, you're new to the club.
Yes, I joined in April. I got into this strangely enough. There was a winter storm, and my neighbor across the street says, "Hey, you can get one of these little radios for cheap. Get it off Amazon, and you can hear the local police." When I was a kid, I was interested in walkie-talkies and that stuff, and he was like, "Oh, look at this! It's got 3 channels, and you would change the crystals and stuff." So it was almost like part of this recent thing about exercising the brain and getting to be curious about many things. And so I figured, start pulling from the string, and before you know it, I'm like, find out there's a club. Wow. Go to one of the meetings, just drop in. I'm not even a member. It was a tech night, and they're showing how to make an antenna. It's like, oh, this is really cool. It's like you're merging, high-tech stuff with tinkering. I always like tinkering. And so, then it's like, all right, so you need to get a license. So I took the tests, and I got my tech license and then my general license. So I have one more level. So I need to study for that, and I'll get that in the fall.
And what does that level do for you?
Well, the tech license, you can get into certain bands, but it doesn't let you get in the bands that you can reach out like across the country or to Europe. So the general license gives you more space on which to transmit. Anybody can hear anybody is where you can transmit. So the higher you go, the more benefits or permission you have to use more of the bands that are assigned to radio amateurs.
Now, are you involved with the club at all?
No, not at all.
Are you interested?
Yeah, I think I'm just kind of dipping my toe in, and I hear him talking at night on the radio. And actually on our honeymoon, he brought the antenna and it's set up with him.
How romantic!
We were on a remote island in Maine, so we had a little setup there, and he was talking to some people. So it's kind of neat how portable it can be. Oh,
that's cool. And so were you able to?
I was trying to get a contact, to get to be heard. I had a radio that either I was still learning, didn't get it set up right to reach out, but I could hear, people from Sweden, and it was a little antenna, just like a little thing on a tripod, nothing like what you see here, and I was blown away that at least I could hear. One of the main things I'm here for is to learn. So I've learned a ton of stuff. I was here Thursday evening, bringing stuff in. All day yesterday I took it as a vacation day, so I helped set up some of the antennas, and it's like drinking out of a fire hose. Right.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of experts here, so everybody seems to have an opinion.
It's amazing. The amount of combined expertise that is here. It's just mind-boggling. Just everything from satellites. I was listening to Fred earlier, starting to do an intro into how does it work. You're talking about the satellites coming this way, and then once they cross over, then you have to switch part of the antennas. I'm queuing that up for maybe next year. I'll get into that.
Well, it's good to see you, and enjoy, and hope you learn a lot. And hope you get your license, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. So in the middle of the event here, we're talking with a former teacher at Nashua South, and that's Nashua, New Hampshire, and he is a geek. I'm CW Geek, Dennis
Mirandis. Yes.
Mirandis.
Yes.
And these are your call signals?
These are my call signs.
Call signs, and you're from Brookline.
I am formerly born and raised in Nashua, and I now have transferred to Brookline, where the taxes are horrible.
Tell me about it. I know that. Believe me, and it has something to do with the schools, I assume.
Hudson, Hollis, Brookline, Hollis high schools have an apportionment which is a little bit more than I can handle.
So back to ham radios. So
I have, this is an anniversary month for me. And I have to tell you that June 60 years ago, I got my license.
wow.
This is like a milestone. I don't remember where 60 years have gone. 60 years have zoomed, and I absolutely love this hobby. I have met the nicest people, have gone to the corners of the country, and I have met up with super people.
So Fred was telling us that they had some type of situation where they were building a ham radio and antennas here in Hudson at the school.
Yeah, they were building what?
Wasn't it some type of satellite towers?
The satellite, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they had a show and tell here where they actually had the satellite set up outside. They had all of the receivers and transceivers inside. And they, a lot of people don't understand this, but a satellite, when it goes over your house, you can only see it for maybe 9 minutes because it's still moving,
right,
even though you may be standing still. So for 9 minutes, they had probably 25 or 30 students talk to the astronauts in space going over Hudson.
So as an educator, how valuable is this?
Education-wise, it is fantastic. You have to channel somebody's mind. We find that engineers love numbers. I, being an English major, I couldn't wait to gab on the radio. I simply had a fun time. I use Morse code a lot, and in using Morse code, I gab. I just talk with my fingers, and it's a fun part of the hobby.
I interviewed a gentleman from Hollis not too long ago. He recently passed. He was 97 years old, and he was his name was John Springer. I think it was Springer, and his last name was. And he was a World War II POW. And when he was captured by the Germans, he was put in a cell, and they had Morse code on the wall, and he could tell how long he was going to be in there.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And what a hero! He ended up being in Stalag 13.
Wow, what a history he has! I bet he had stories that were unbelievable.
Oh, it was a wonderful interview, but Morse code is it's still not dead.
Well, let me tell you a story. I don't want anybody to know, and if you're my former students, don't believe this. When I was in junior high school, Peter and I both got our license together. He was K1 MOZ, and I am K1 LGQ. And we had classes that worked together, and as it turned out, when he and I were in the math class, I would stretch out my feet because he sat in front of me, and I would tap his ankle, and he would give me the answers.
No.
Yes, he did. I don't want anybody to know that, though.
Well, confession is good for the soul.
Oh, I thank you. Lordy, that was a good story.
Yeah. So it's a great event, and what tent are you in? Are you in one of these tents?
I am in the tent that's way behind me. It's called the CW tent, which stands for Continuous Wave, or as we call it, Morse code. And I am going to be operating in about 10 minutes. I will put my earphones on and literally just talk with my fingers and talk to the country who will hear me. And I will be saying who I am. In this case, we are Nashua, and our Nashua call is N1FD, what we call Foxtrot Delta. And I will be sending a section, which is New Hampshire, and I will be sending a message, which is 11A or 11 Alpha, which means that simultaneously we have 11 stations operating here at Field Day. So other people across the country may be operating at their home or in their car or high up on a hill, but we have an emergency Field Day which happens once a year. The original reason that Field Day was initiated was to have an emergency situation. If we ever needed to get together and set up a station, we have done it in 24 hours. And as you can see around here, we have every possible way of communicating with somebody across the world. That's what Field Day is. Although it turns into an event where we get to see a lot of people, we buddy up, we shake hands, we see people we haven't seen in another year. It's just it's a good experience. It brings out the fun of this hobby, ham radio, or as people call it, amateur radio. And again, 60 years have just zoomed by.
Well, thank you for being part of the show, and thank you for being part of this event, obviously.
Well, thank you, Nashua. And I want to say to my former students and those people who don't know who I am, thank you very much, and meet you at the next radio meeting, once for first Tuesday of the month. Good.
And learn Morse code. It has its
Morse
advantages.
But don't tell anybody. It's the secret code.
All right. Thank you.